everybody, and welcome back to another OutCenter Talks Medicaid. I am super happy to be here as always with our Medicaid leads, Karen and Kate. Hey guys.
Hey.
I know there's a birthday today. Whose birthday was it?
It was mine on Friday.
Yep. And there's cake. I'm so happy for you. Happy late birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And we are going to be talking with an awesome guest today, focusing a little bit on immigration, the LGBT community, and Medicaid, and the big Venn diagram that is all three of those topics. So I would like to introduce our guest, Alex Gillettt, and I will let her introduce herself from here. And then Karen and Kate, I know you're going to head right into questions, and we're going to make this super awesome and super informative. So, Alex, take it away.
Great, thanks, Alex. So yeah, my name is Alex Gillettt. I am the attorney at Gillett Law. I just recently opened this small law firm last August, and I work primarily in immigration law on family petitions and humanitarian cases. Previously, I had been with an organization called Justice for Our Neighbors in Grand Rapids. And while there, I again worked on family and humanitarian cases, but I had really built up a good relationship with the Grand Rapids Pride Center. For years, we worked out a situation where I was able to see any of their clients quickly, and we had regular office hours at the Pride Center to just open walk-in appointments so that people who identified as LGBT and maybe had an immigration question or an urgent issue in immigration, they could come in and speak with me. So I had a great relationship with them. And since I've opened my own private practice, I have been reaching out to places like the OutCenter in Southwest Michigan to see how I could be a resource in, even though I'm in a private sphere, still being available and working with the LGBT community and in immigration issues. So
thank you. Woo, fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On your own practice.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So where are you located?
Oh yeah, that would be helpful. I am located, I'm based out of Fenville in Michigan, so Southwest Michigan, but I serve clients across the state. Really, I could work with anyone across the country. I am qualified to work in immigration law. It's federal jurisdiction, so I can really work anywhere across the country.
Well, that's great to know. Yeah. That is
Yep.
wonderful to know. Okay.
Yeah, and all my appointments, at least for now, are by phone and Zoom, or video call. So you really could be anywhere in the world and I can talk to you.
Wow, great. That's fantastic. Phew. Okay, well, I guess.
A quick note before you jump into the questions, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
Gillett Law has been added to our resource manual as an LGBT affirming immigration law center, or
great
attorneys. So if anyone in Southwest Michigan is looking for an LGBT friendly person to connect with regarding immigration issues, reach out to us and we will connect you with Alex. Okay, carry on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. You. Thanks. So we read up on a little article here about from the Williams Institute, and we noted that like 1.3 million LGBT adult immigrants are now living in the U.S. and 3% of all immigrants in the U.S. identify as LGBT. Nearly half are between 18 and 29 years old. And can you speak to a little bit about that and people who are like seeking asylum or citizenship, or, you know, speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many reasons why people choose to immigrate here to the U.S. Yeah, so many reasons. The U.S. has been seen as a country of opportunity and freedom. And I think as long as the US remains that way, as being open and full of opportunity, people will keep coming here. Some people seek to immigrate here to work for different economic opportunities. Others because maybe their situation in their home country is dangerous or just so unlivable that they need to leave and find a new place to live and make their life. My experience for those who identify as LGBT, some choose to immigrate here because the US is more accepting of the LGBTQ community. And that's not to say that the US is perfect on those issues, but comparatively to other more conservative countries where people who identify as LGBT may be criminalized, imprisoned, or hurt, maybe even killed, the US is safer than those countries, or it offers them an opportunity to live more openly in the way they choose.
Fantastic. Yeah. Have you, in the past, have you spoken to someone who has been, threatened, physically, and like has come to you for help?
Yeah, I've had clients who I've assisted with applying for asylum. I have been successful on some of those cases, which is not always the case with asylum. It can be really difficult to get that in the US. But yes, I've had clients who have left their country because they feared for their lives, or they feared being incarcerated for an indeterminate amount of time.
Sure. Right. Right. What about, well, getting back to our project here with Medicaid, what about applying for Medicaid as an immigrant? Are they able to receive Medicaid? Even like, of course, undocumented immigrants?
Yeah, so it all depends. I'll start with undocumented immigrants. So generally, if you are here undocumented, you don't have papers, Medicaid is not available to you except for emergency services. So if you're here, without papers and you experience a medical emergency, you can go to an emergency room or another provider and seek help, and you will have medical coverage under Medicaid, but only for the emergency services.
Okay.
And there are other options other than Medicaid if you are undocumented to get medical help. There are many clinics, like free clinics, low-cost clinics, public hospitals, migrant and community health centers. Those all provide health services without requiring health insurance or Medicaid. So there are options for those folks. For people who have immigrated here and have a visa or a green card, they have the documentation. The availability of Medicaid varies, and it can also depend on the state you live in. So
sure.
if you are a permanent resident, so you have a green card, you are not eligible for Medicaid until you've been a permanent resident for 5 years. And that's the federal rules on that. There are exceptions to this 5-year waiting period after you get your green card. And that's only for certain categories of immigrants. And that includes refugees, asylees, victims of domestic violence, and victims of human trafficking. Most often they don't have to wait that 5 years. And in some cases you can be eligible before you receive your green card. So for example, like refugees who come here, once they land in the United States and they have their refugee status, they're eligible for Medicaid right away. So they're not yet a green card holder. They just have what's this like temporary status as a refugee. They can get Medicaid under that status right away.
In every state?
Yes, in every state.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it varies by state. Some states will offer health insurance before that 5-year waiting period occurs. So you just really need to check with your health department in, or I should say the health services in your state to see if you qualify before that 5 years ends.
I'm wondering if you've encountered, I can just imagine that some undocumented immigrants fear going to the emergency room, that someone will call ICE to come and get them. And they maybe just don't seek medical care when they need it. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, that's absolutely something that happens all the time. Yeah, it is. And generally, ICE or immigration enforcement, they don't generally go to hospitals
Good
to
to know.
enforce. Yeah, I mean, there's always flukes, but in general, you should feel safe going to an emergency room if you have a health emergency.
Right.
And I've had clients who give false names at emergency rooms because they're afraid that there'll be a record, but really the emergency room is to help with your medical needs. It's not there to report you to the police or to ICE or anyone.
Okay.
Good. That's good. Well, are immigrants able to receive the COVID vaccine?
Yeah. Yes.
Or undocumented? I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, if you're documented or undocumented as an immigrant, you are eligible to receive the COVID vaccine. And in fact, the Department of Homeland Security, the federal government, they have made a statement that encourages all immigrants, regardless of status, to get the vaccine. And they've also stated that they will not have any ICE or CBP, which is Border Patrol agents, at or near the vaccination sites. So again, going back to your question about or statement, I guess, about immigrants being fearful of going to an emergency room because of enforcement. There's really no need to fear going to these vaccination clinics or sites. There may be police there for kind of like crowd control and just making sure everything's okay, but no one's there checking your immigration status or to report you. Let's see.
It's great.
Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to add about the vaccine or vaccination clinics. There have been some reports of people being denied a vaccine because they couldn't provide certain documents. Just know that should not be happening. So if that does happen to you because you maybe don't have like a US ID of any kind, just know that you have a right to go to a vaccine clinic. It really depends on the clinic you go to, but you should be eligible for the vaccine. So you may just have to try again, or
keep at it.
Okay.
Yeah, keep at it.
Yeah. So our next question for you: the public charge law has caused immigrants to avoid using, government services, including Medicaid, once again due to fear of deportation or losing their green card status. Could you explain the changes in the public charge law, since you're a lawyer?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thank you.
It gets a little complicated. So yeah, there's this public charge rule. It's been around for many years. It existed long before Trump came into office. However, under Trump's administration, they decided to change the public charge rule a lot, so that it effectively put applicants for their green card or for permanent residence under what's called a wealth test. Basically, they changed this rule to try to filter out people who had more money, who spoke English, had advanced degrees, and they really were trying to keep out anyone else who did not have those kind of more privileged qualifications. And yeah, going to your question, it did penalize applicants for receiving certain public benefits. And this rule, it caused a huge amount of fear in the immigrant community. I mean, people were already kind of nervous about getting public benefits because of this public charge rule. And then when this change, this wealth test kind of came into play, it really made people afraid. And it caused a lot of people to either disenroll from different benefits like Medicaid or SNAP, or to never apply at all, even though maybe they themselves qualified or their children qualified under the rule. So, so this public charge rule, it's mostly applied to people applying for their green cards through a family member. So those are called like family petitions, family cases in immigration law. And this affects a lot of people, but it did not apply to applications for refugees and asylees, unaccompanied minors, so children who are here in the US without their parents. It did not apply to victims of domestic violence or trafficking and other serious crimes. So the public charge rule was a little limited in who it applied to, but it still affects a lot of people. And it did affect the, it did cause a lot of people who maybe qualified for those benefits to still disenroll. So that was really frustrating and very complicated to communicate to people, because, you know, especially when a lot of people were so scared, they just didn't want to believe our complicated explanations that they could still apply for like SNAP benefits for their kids, for example.
Right.
So yeah, so this rule was really scary, really frustrating, very complicated. And there's a lot of battles in court over whether this rule was I should say the change in the rule was constitutional or not, whether it was like permissible or not. But it did ultimately go into effect. I think that was at the end of 2020, pending, you know, further litigation. So yeah, just very frustrating to everyone involved. And it did require a very long and complicated application, like an extra form and a lot of extra documents you had to send when you applied for your green card. So that was a very long explanation about this rule. And fortunately, very recently, the Biden administration has taken away those changes made to the public charge rule. So that change in the rule is no longer in play. There's no longer the wealth test or the really long, you know, application form to prove that you make enough money and do all this and that you've never received public benefits.
Fantastic.
Yes, it's great.
So things kind of went back to before Trump.
Yeah. So they went back to the way they were before Trump's administration changed the rule. But that's not to say that there is still no public charge rule. There are still certain requirements. So for immigrants who still have not received their permanent residence in the US, so they don't have their green card, they should still be careful to not apply for public benefits like Medicaid that they do not qualify for. So, you know, whether you qualify or not, it's really helpful to talk with, in Michigan, a DHHS representative to identify if you're qualified or not. But yeah, and it's also important to be honest about your immigration status when you speak with a DHHS officer, and not lie about like if you're a US citizen or if your status is different than what it actually is. So
do you know what President Biden is planning to change about the public the public charge rule? Is there anything he plans to do?
As far as we know, so this change really just came about in the last couple of weeks.
Mhm.
So I don't think he'll take any more steps to change it. Really, before it was a pretty minor rule, and it it was fair enough.
Mhm.
It wasn't requiring quite as many things as Trump's version of the rule was. So I think they'll probably just stick with the rule as it was from 4 years ago, and I don't expect any more changes to come. But things are changing all the time, so we'll see.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see. Well, another question is, how do you receive referrals to assist LGBT immigrants? And who are you working with?
As far as agencies or people that might give you referrals.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. Anyone interested in talking with me, like in a consultation about, your legal immigration options, you are welcome to call my office. Again, my firm is called Gillett Law. My phone number is 616-438-6538. You can also email me. I do have WhatsApp if you all use that application at all. It's the same phone number that I just gave. You can also find me on my website or on Facebook. But to make an appointment, it's generally best to call or email me.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and there are a number of organizations that provide low cost or free services, immigration legal services, I should say, that are allies of the LGBTQ community. So one is the place I used to work at, Justice for Our Neighbors. Our Grand Rapids office is where I was. That office continues to be a strong partner with the Pride Center in Grand Rapids. And really any of the offices of Justice for Our Neighbors across the state. They're all, LGBT friendly, strong allies, and their offices are also in Detroit, Traverse City, and Kalamazoo. Another place that does a lot of work, especially in immigration law and also in advocating for immigrants generally in Medicaid or other public benefit issues, is Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. They would be a good resource if you have questions specific about Medicaid and public benefits and how that may interact with your immigration status.
Okay.
Yeah, and then one last one, another place work in West Michigan, they're based in Holland, is Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates. Yeah, they focus only on immigration legal cases, but they are strong allies as well. And there are more organizations across the state, but those three in particular, I know personally that they are strong allies and would be very welcoming spaces for folks with questions.
Great.
Fantastic. Wonderful.
Okay.
So what can we do
at the OutCenter
as the OutCenter to help ensure the LGBT immigrants in our area better utilize Medicaid or the services they need?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a big question, many answers. From my experience with doing outreach, as an attorney, and then before that, I think it always helps to team up with other organizations that are already doing similar work or who are already like trusted, either trusted organizations or trusted people in the community you're trying to reach. With immigrant communities, I think it's important to team up with agencies that are already doing outreach, like at schools or at job sites, farms, other agricultural settings, and different health clinics. I think those are good agencies to team up with. Like often, in the past, anyways, I have worked with, or I've tagged along with they're not healthcare providers, but they're doing outreach to get health services to migrant farm workers on the farms. So they would travel around and I would kind of tag along with them and just have information available to anyone who wanted to talk.
That's great.
That's good.
Yeah. And then, yeah, and I think also just like being a consistent presence in your community, putting out the information. So when people are ready to talk or have questions about it, you know, they know where to find you. I think that's key.
Fantastic.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I don't know if we have any more questions for you right now.
Do you have anything to add?
Anything that you want to talk about as far as immigration and LGBTQ and Medicaid and
I think I talked a lot today.
Covered it.
I don't think I have anything else to add other than, you know, I'm always available if any other questions do come up, or, you know, I'm a resource in the Southwest Michigan community. So
Great.
that is fantastic. That's fantastic for us in Southwest Michigan. That
We're
you're
glad
here.
to know you're here.
Yes.
yeah, great.
What about you, Alex? Do you have anything to add? Alex Cross?
No, I just want to thank Alex for giving us a little bit of her time today to talk about how important it is to recognize that we have a large number of LGBT immigrants in the country, and that you know, LGBT immigrants are refugees, asylum seekers, green card holders, and every step of the immigration process. And I think we have to remember that immigration rights are LGBT rights, and together we are advocating for human rights. And I personally believe that Medicaid's a human right, but hey, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thank her and both you, Karen and Kate, for your time to talk about this important issue. So remember, if you are in need of healthcare, you can go to healthcare.gov, or you can Google MI Bridges, and you can apply through the Michigan website, which is really convenient. They include not only Medicaid, but also WIC and SNAP applications all in one go. Or you can go to healthcare.gov and register for Medicaid there. And if you are above the threshold to receive Medicaid off of healthcare.gov, you can also go onto the exchange there, and the special enrollment project, the special enrollment date, it ends in April. So a lot of great information, a lot of great resources. We're so glad to have Alex not only talking with us, but in our area. Allegan is basically Southwest Michigan in my heart, Allegan County. And yeah, thank you all so much for this great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, Internet.
Bye.
Bye.